for joining us again. We're thinking about harvest this week. I'm guessing that we've all contributed at some time or other to harvest displays in our churches or in our children's or grandchildren's schools. Now I wonder, if we're honest, if there was at least some occasions when we've had to scramble in the back of the cupboard to find the odd tin. Maybe it's a tin near its sell-by date, or a tin of a produce that we just don't use as a family. And we send it off to the display with not much thought. I'm sure I've shared before, but there was a tin of peas pudding, whatever that is, that regularly seemed to cycle itself around the gap cupboard, appearing each year, dusty and grubby and unused. Well, we're going to read today from another Old Testament passage, and this passage sets out how the people are going to live for God in the land He was giving them. So let's read from Deuteronomy 26, 1 through to 11. When you have entered the land the Lord God is giving you as an inheritance, and you've taken possession of it and settled in it, take some of the first fruits of all that you produce in the soil of the land the Lord your God is giving you. Put them in a basket. Then go to the place the Lord your God will choose as a dwelling for His name, and say to the priest in the office at the time, I declare today to the Lord your God that I have come to the land the Lord swore to our ancestors to give us. The priest shall take the basket from your hands and set it down in front of the altar of the Lord your God. Then you shall declare before the Lord your God, my father was a wandering Aramean, and he went down into Egypt with a few people and lived there and became a great nation, powerful and numerous. But the Egyptians mistreated us and made us suffer, subjecting us to harsh labour. Then we cried out to the Lord and the God of our ancestors, and the Lord heard our voice, saw our misery, toil and oppression. So the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, with a great terror and with signs and wonders. He brought us to this place and gave us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And now I bring the first fruits of the soil that you, Lord, have given me. Place the basket before the Lord your God, and bow down before Him. Then you and the Levites and the foreigners residing among you shall rejoice in all the good things the Lord your God has given to you and your household. My family have done an orchard walk near Ash a few times in the last few years. We go at different times of the year, and it's always interesting to see what time of year it is by what's going on with the fruit trees, whether there's blossom or fruit or they're empty. One year we went about this time of year and the trees were bare. The apples and the pears had been harvested. And what was surprising to us was how many apples and pears there were on the ground, discarded, left, bruised and nibbled by wildlife. I guess what we saw there was that the best had been taken away and the least and the worst had been left. Thinking about those apples and those pears, considering our lives, do we give God the first fruits, the best fruits, or do we give Him the bits that have been left over, the bruised and nibbled apples, or the tin at the back of the cupboard? The first fruit principle we find in Deuteronomy is to bring something out of a heart of gratitude and give it to the Lord, something that reflects God's good provision in our lives, to bring God the best. Like I said, not to dust off the old tin at the back of the cupboard. God has done so much for His people, saving them from slavery, protecting, providing for them in the wilderness. When they finally get to the land that He's giving them, when they build and they plant, and they see the fruit of the culmination of all God's blessings in a successful harvest, well, what were they going to do then? How are they going to respond? God has called His people to partnership. Yes, it will be their work that produces the harvest, but only because God has provided for them. Only because God had watered and sent the sun and given them land in the first place. And so God expects a generous gift from the first fruit of the crops, an act of worship, an act of love, an act of recognition of that partnership and God's abundant provision. And so the people are given a liturgy, part of their worship, and it culminates in bringing in the gift to God as an act of thankfulness and worship. Let's remind ourselves of that liturgy we just read. My father was a wandering Aramean, and he went down to Egypt with a few people and lived there, became a great nation, powerful and numerous. But the Egyptians mistreated us and made us suffer, subjecting us to harsh labour. Then we cried out to the Lord, the God of our ancestors, and the Lord heard our voice and saw our misery, toil and oppressions. So the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. With great terror, with signs and wonders, he brought us to this place and gave us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And now I bring the first fruits of the soil that you, Lord, have given me. I wonder if it would be a good thing for us to do to write our own liturgy. Write our own story, reflecting back on what God has done for us, what He's provided us with, what He's given us. And then, to go with our liturgy, we can consider what we might give to God, as the first fruit offering is the best of what we have. Let's not go scraping around in the back of the cupboard or scrabbling for apples on the floor, but think about giving God something that reflects His good and generous provision in our lives. May God bless us as we think about these things.